I want to thank all of you for joining us here today. I am Assemblymember Inez E. Dickens from Represent NYC at MNN, our Manhattan Neighborhood Network. That's the presenter that we're using today. And we've got a very important topic that's domestic violence and COVID-19, a pandemic in a pandemic. And that's because with the pandemic and the having to stay at home, stay within the same family structure, domestic violence increased significantly. I think that it's very important that we address this issue to thousands of women and families across our city. Domestic violence has been on the increase. Since the state mandated closure due to the COVID-19 pandemic, many women have suffered terribly and in silence at the hands of their abusers. They have been unable to seek help or find assistance during the past year to save them and their children frequently from the pain and suffering they're experiencing. Domestic violence affects women of all ages, ethnicities, cultures, and income, and has lasting effects on future relationships as well, especially if there are children present to witness. Although many organizations like W.A.R.M have been active in bringing attention to this issue and reaching out to women in order to rescue them from these toxic environments, the isolation forced upon them by the pandemic has caused many women to lose hope. Here is our work now. That's when it begins. Today, we will speak about that work that has been accomplished and is still being done to combat the plague of violence that persists in so many households. Ms. Stephanie McGraw, founder of We All Really Matter, or W.A.R.M for short, is one of those that has been in the fields fighting before the pandemic, years before the pandemic. And she is also a very good friend. Will present a panelist of experts and activists to share their perspectives of where we are now and how much further we have to go. I'm going to ask that will Stephanie McGraw please have her opening remarks and introduce your panelists, please.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to first thank my amazing, beautiful, and dear friend, Assemblywoman Inez Dickens, who I can always call on, who I can reach. And this is what we built here in this hall. She always say, come, go Harlem. She's all about Harlem. I'd like to thank my panelists who have come from around the country to join us, and we're grateful for that. So I am the founder of W.A.R.M. W.A.R.M is a non-for-profit organization that I gave birth to 10 years ago, coming out of my own personal vicious cycle of abuse. And it was important for me to come back to the community of color, of Black and Brown and Latino women, to express and to talk about this is not a shame, and not a shame, it's a crime, and we're here to expose it. But we want women to be able to have a safe space so they can come and talk about this. So when the pandemic hit, we all were already dealing with a national health crisis, which is intimate partner violence. So we had to scramble to try to understand, how do we begin to help women? And we didn't know how to help women virtually, so we decided to open up our doors. And during the pandemic, we were able to get 15 women out, creative respite for women to come to, serve over 45,000 meals, over 39,000 PPEs. So we were honored to do that. However, this is an issue that we must it's all of our business, and it takes a village to eradicate domestic violence. Just real quick, I went to a funeral Tuesday, for this young baby that died in our community. And the cause of his death was battered beaten syndrome. So he actually died from being beaten to death. So domestic violence is not just men or women, it's children, it's grandmothers, it's grandfathers, it's uncles and sisters. It does not care if you're white, black, green, or purple. It doesn't care if you're rich or poor. Domestic violence is, I like to say, soul sickness. That's why we have a wonderful, amazing Apostle Ramos here. It's going to take all of us collectively. So we're here in this community, and we're honored that Assemblywoman is putting this on to raise the alarm about the devastating issues of domestic violence. So we're here, we're in Harlem, we're centrally located, we're at 8 West 126th Street, and we help women navigate through the frontiers of the overwhelming amount of bureaucracy to help them get their needs met. We go above and beyond. We're grassroots, we're boots on the ground, and we are collectively, not everyone that works for us, because we do have some professional people that come in, but the majority of the people that work here are survivors. So our approach and our walk, we help walk women out of their pain, and we help to restore, rebuild, and reconnect. We call ourselves the repair shop. You're welcome. Come as you are. No judgment. We're here to help you. And the only way we can do that as collectively together. So I'm happy that we're here today. I'd like to, with no further ado, I'd like to get right in to the meat and potatoes, because we need to just cut in, get in, dive in, and let's dissect this collectively to eradicate. It's going to take all of us, because it is a national health crisis. And women being stuck in a home with their abuser and the kids, there's no school. This was a recipe for disaster. So I'm honored to be here. I'm honored that we're all here. So I'd like to just real quick introduce the panel. We have our amazing, beautiful Apostle Staci Ramos. We have our amazing, dynamic Dr. Valerie Smalls, who real quick, I have to say, she was my professor in school, and we are still friends. She was my professor, and she was pretty hard on me, I need to tell you that. It's never too late. Dr. Obari Cartman out of Chicago, we'd like to thank you. We'd like to thank our amazing Olivia Wilson, who I work very closely with the Manhattan Justice Center. Commissioner Cecile knows that's been very supportive. So we know we're talking about a pandemic. We're talking about domestic violence, intimate partner violence, and the COVID-19, a pandemic within a pandemic. I'd like to put this question to Dr. Obari Cartman and the work that he does, and the effects on domestic violence and mental illness and the Black and Brown community.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an important topic. There's so many levels of solutions to this problem. When you think about what you're doing, the emergency crisis intervention, where my work lies is very much in the realm of prevention. And for me, I think that has to mean men focusing on reconstructing, reconceptualizing their relationships with women, with power. As fathers, I'm a father. I have two boys that are 5 and 8 years old, and I'm already hearing the scripts form from the things they pick up in the world about women being weak, about women being less than, about the value of a woman, and what their manhood means. The building blocks of that starts very, very early. People walk up to my sons and say, "Oh, you cute, you're gonna be a little player, a little pimp," right? They ain't thinking about nothing but like Pop-Tarts and Legos, but the building blocks of who they are is being shaped right now. And that is the intervention point that's really important to me. How do we get to the young men to help them dissect the world that's telling them these messages that they are more important, that they're more valuable, and when a moment like this happens, when we're talking about unemployment and racism and addiction and all these other sort of stressors, that there is no outlet other than control and domination, right? So part of it is teaching young men emotional intelligence and helping them have other ways of being, having them redefine their masculinity. All that starts young, real young. It's building something different than what we were taught as young men, and undoing some of the damage that's happening just by living in the world, just by watching TV, just by scrolling, just by listening to the music. There's so many toxic ideas about the relationship, the conceptualization of what a woman is and what a man's relationship is. that turns into intimate partner violence, that the outcome is, right? So we, at the root of this, to prevent this, that a lot of the work is men having conversations with younger men, whether they're your sons or your mentees, or if you're a fraternity, or if you're a coach, whatever it is, that there's a lot of responsibility that men are not owning up to, and leaving this conversation to women to solve. It's very much like, you know, white people can't give black people the solutions to racism. White people have to be involved to fix racism, right? It's not a black person, it's not a Asian, it's not a Latinx, it's everybody, but particularly those perpetuators have to be at the table to try to solve a problem when you are causing the harm. And for that, it's got to be men, right? We are the ones. And certainly there are cases when men are victims. Certainly there's children. The #1 movie in America right now, the streaming, the comedy Coming to America, most people missed the rape scene because there's a man involved, and it's funny because like he got drugged, and like, you know, the whole plot is hinged upon this moment where a man is attacked, which reinforces this idea that men always like it if a man has sex, whether he's consenting or not, right? So there's certainly things that men need to take control of and find ways, and we're harmed too. But predominantly, when we're talking about intimate partner violence all over the country, all over the world, we're talking about men as the causes of harm inside of a house with people that you love, with a misconceptualization of what love, power, and manhood means. We got to get at that.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So we'd like to actually, because we understand that collectively, we have to do this together. And we are so connected to the importance of prayer and the church. So we have asked Apostle Staci Ramos to come on to help us understand, and how do we deal with domestic violence and COVID-19, because we already know we're already dealing with a pandemic within a pandemic. So I'd like you to introduce yourself and share with us your thoughts, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Stephanie. I'll first start with Stephanie, my sister, and the way that we connected. I'm just very grateful for the work and all that you're doing. So thank you for having me on this panel. I want to really send out just a big heartfelt love for my auntie, the Assemblymember Inez. I mean, she is the village mother. She is the village mother of Harlem, and we love her and we thank her. And I thank you again for having me, and I thank you all, my colleagues here on today. This is a very serious and significant issue, and Dr. Abari, the way you really broke down, even the Coming to America part of the movie that everybody missed because everybody was saying how great it was really, really important. So I was very grateful to hear that also on this afternoon. There is a scripture, Jeremiah 29:7, and it tells us to seek the good of your cities. It tells us to seek the welfare, the goodness of your cities. And then the promise behind that, folks, is not only that you're going to seek the good of your city, but that the peace will come onto you, that the prosperity will come onto you. And I believe that that's what we're doing. I believe the church needs to be knee-deep involved. I think that the church is a full line and an extension of hope. Assemblymember Inez just said it when she came on, that there needs to be a hope, that there needs to be a hope in the village, not only in the village of Harlem, but across the world. And I believe the church is that extension of hope. We are a church outside of the walls. And I believe, with myself being a community pastor for a community, that the church has to be involved, because we need to complete and set up a full wraparound service. And without the church, it's just impossible. So whatever the needs are of the people, the church is fully involved for their spiritual need, for their upliftment, for their empowerment, for their moving forward. And that's what Stephanie is doing as she's creating these respites. But now she's getting really strong because she's connecting and locking arms with one of the greatest institutions in the world, and that is the church. And in the early church, this is what they did. They were concerned because domestic violence went on then as well. This is not a new phenomenon, and this will not be the end. So we've got to jump in head first, feet first, and we've got to really take on the plight one and together, one accord, as one, fully together for a complete and full wraparound to deliver and help them get beyond this soul of sickness.
we would like to introduce someone we've been working with since we created W.A.R.M, and that is Olivia Wilson, from the Deputy Director of the Manhattan Family Justice Center.
Hi, everybody, and thank you so much. Sam, thank you to Assemblymember Dickens for being with us today. Thank you so much to Miss Stephanie for all that you do with W.A.R.M, and it's really an honor to be here with you, Dr. Cartman, Dr. Small, Apostle Ramos. So I'm so happy to be here. So my message today is about resources and hope, and having hope that there are resources out there and there is help out there, right? Whether you're gathering that help for yourself or someone that you care about, which a lot of people are looking for these days. So my name is Olivia Wilson. I work for the Mayor's Office to End Domestic and Gender-Based Violence. I'm the Deputy Director at the Manhattan Family Justice Center. So what is a Family Justice Center? There's one Family Justice Center in each borough of New York City. And we respond to partner violence, domestic violence, elder abuse, trafficking. So kind of the purpose of the center is to provide a variety of services all in one place so that the survivor doesn't have to go here, there, and everywhere, getting their counseling, getting their legal services. So the idea is all in one place. So stepping back, you know, we were a walk-in center. That's what we always did. People could walk in between 9 and 5. But obviously, you know, during this time, we've had to pivot and really rely on reaching people virtually, by phone, by different types of chats. So, you know, we are across the Family Justice Centers, one in each borough. We're answering about 100, more than 100 calls a day. These are 50 new clients each day across the boroughs, 25,000 calls since we went remote about a year ago. So we're just trying to be flexible, provide all of the services virtually and by phone. And, you know, we're always working on reaching even the more vulnerable people who don't even have access to phone. So that's a struggle that we're having, right? Because we also know people don't necessarily have a safe space to talk on the phone these days, right? So we are trying our best to contend and navigate all of that. But my message would be definitely call the Family Justice Centers. We're going to provide all the phone numbers and all of that. But what do we have? And just very briefly, so free confidential services. So these are for all, right? These include undocumented people, criminalized survivors. We have case management, so that would entail safety planning, information about how to access emergency shelter if you need to get out, if you need to get your children out of a bad situation, right? And then general information on how to kind of navigate different systems as you're doing that, right? So we have attorneys on site, we have legal screenings every day. So about child custody, orders of protection, anything to do with the family court, anything to do with divorce. And we also have immigration attorneys on site. We have children's counseling, and this includes children who are very small, between the ages of, you know, infancy through 5 years old and beyond that, right? But children who have been exposed to domestic violence, right? And are carrying that trauma, even in their very tiny bodies, right? We have adult counseling, of course, group counseling. And we have economic empowerment. So whether it's working on your resume or learning about budgeting, savings, you know, taxes, estate planning, anything like that. So again, the model is collaborative. And, you know, we just really encourage folks to reach out, ask questions, also leave messages, because all the FJCs are answering the phone, but we're not able to pick up all. We're getting a lot. So people leave messages. We're, you know, doing our very best to call back. And so the MFJC, the Manhattan Family Justice Center, is 212-602-2800. So between Monday and Friday, folks can call that number, and then over the weekend, access the general 621-HOPE, which is the general hotline for domestic violence in the New York City area. So again, thank you all, and I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you so much. And now we'd like to ask Dr. Valerie Smalls, who comes with approach with, introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you, Ms. McGraw, for having me. And as she said, I was her former professor. And yes, I was tough on her because I know that she had a vision, and I wanted that vision to come to pass. I've been working with Ms. McGraw for the last, I would say, 5 years or 6 years, some degree, I think. And I just want to thank Dr. Abari for what he said, and Apostle Stacy, and Ms. Olivia Wilson for what you said. It's interesting enough that Dr. Obari, you brought up the fact that there's a scene, or there is a scene in Coming to America that you know, that transpired, and there's not much said about it. My background is a sociologist, And also I worked in television, in the media. So from my perspective, for that to have been not criticizing the movie, but as I was talking to Ms. McGraw, from a sociological perspective, what I usually do is help these individuals that have been criminalized, socialized back into communities. How are they doing that? Okay. How are they building the relationships, not only socially, but again, as Dr. Abari said, psychologically. So I deal with these individuals from an interpersonal perspective to build their self-esteem and their self-confidence. In addition to that, I also talk to them about how the media portrays them in society, okay? How this has become to some degree entertaining, how we do not have a narrative in what's happening from a sociological perspective in our communities. Why is it that we are not getting additional coverage? This is something that's very serious. How come our communities are not in charge of the narrative to talk about this? As Ms. McGraw said, the young 10-year-old that was murdered in Harlem, okay? It made the news, but we hear nothing else about that. We need to have more media involvement covering these stories, and not just once, but consistently. And this is where we are falling short, because we are not having a voice and our narrative is not being heard. And those in the media are giving their narrative to this, and we are absent. So we need to, as a community, get more involved. And I would say even pressure the news of the media about whether it's in print, whether it's in, visually on television, social media. We really need to bring this a lot to life even more, because this is an emergency. It is a pandemic, and it's also an epidemic that has been within our community for years. So, that's what I do. And just how are we being represented? A lot of us, we really don't have a voice.
Thank you, Dr. Smalls. Because we just have a few minutes left, so I have a question for Olivia. Now that the protocols are relaxing somewhat from COVID, due to the numbers decreasing and the more people getting vaccinated, do you anticipate reopening in-person visits? And would you give the address where you are if that's going to happen?
Sure, great question. So, because we're answering the live calls, we have the opportunity to try to accommodate people, which we have been doing on a case-by-case basis. So, we're able to say, listen, are you able to take a walk at 2 p.m.? We'll call you then, right? And we have been able to have limited in-person appointments. So we are kind of starting to think about how this would look. And actually our Manhattan Center is the first one that has been open on a limited basis. So the point is, absolutely, if folks are able to reach out to us, we can try our best to accommodate up and including having folks come into the center when they need a safe place to reach us. We're at 80 Center Street. But again, I really encourage folks to call, just because we are there by appointment only. So still that's the best way to reach us, the 212-602-2800. And of course, through Ms. Stephanie McGraw as well, who's able to connect with us very easily. So we're honored to work with her regularly. And we know that she has been there on the ground as well.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Small, you were talking about the advocacy or the work really that you've done with individual patients. Recently, we've been hearing about the increase of senior abuse and also abuse of older men, like grandfathers, etc. Is that part of your program?
Yes, well, part of my program is working with the seniors, and I have a passion, Assemblywoman Dickens, for the seniors. We need to do more door-to-door checking in on the seniors, because the seniors have been shut in. And what we have been doing on an individual basis in my community, I'm also a block president. We've been checking and calling the seniors to make sure that they are okay, because some of them are alone. And just like you said, Assemblywoman, it's not just women, it's older men as well. And the abuse is coming from family members.
Yes.
generation is not outside. We're talking about people within the family that's being abusive, taking the money, taking advantage of the spaces that they occupy. So yes, doing a check-in, even if it's a call, and if they don't sound correct, we go over there and we knock on their doors and we visit them. So yes, this is something that's it's critical right now, and it's an emergency. And I am pleading that everyone in their community, if you know of a senior person that's in your community and next door, you should be checking on them. And I'm using the word should because it's an emergency.
Now, Dr. Cartman, I wanted to ask you one last question very quickly. In the Black community, because I know that abuse occurs across ethnicity, but in the Black community, for years, our men left down south, for instance, to come north in search of employment, jobs, to secure better resources. And the mothers or the women or the grandmothers were frequently left really to care for the entire household and the family. Now, do you think that, and sometimes they never saw the father again. Now, do you think that had a bearing on what's occurring? Because now I'm talking about within the Black families now.
Yeah, I mean, what's really important about that dynamics is within Black families, a lot of that's turning around in terms of like traditional sense of the role of the man in the house. So in terms of like Black women graduating college, higher education, and employment, men are finding themselves without like a sense of place, without employment, and with these traditional breadwinner ideas. We're unable to see the value of providing time instead of money, providing presence and compassion instead of resources.
Thank you so much for joining us on this very important topic. We are at 8 West 126th Street. We're open 5 days a week. We have safety precautions. We also offer virtual court, because what we were seeing is that a lot of these women were trying to navigate their life-changing situation on a cell phone, and some of them didn't have it.
That's all the time we have for today. I want to thank MNN. I want to thank Stephanie McGraw, the founder and CEO of W.A.R.M, our fantastic panelists today. You were terrific. Dr. Obari Cartman, Apostle Dr. Staci Ramos, Deputy Director Olivia Wilson, and Dr. Valerie Small. And of course, everyone that's tuning in today. Until next time, this is New York State Assemblymember Inez E. Dickens, asking everyone to please stay safe, wear your mask, practice social distancing, and if you have not yet received your vaccine, please schedule an appointment as soon as you can.